Okay. Well, feel free to share wins in our group chat throughout the week, guys. If a win pops up, we'd love to hear it on the group call. But I know sometimes you forget about it, or maybe you're excited about it in the moment. Go ahead and throw it in the group chat, along with any questions that come along throughout the week. But love to get just straight into the Q&A. What are we dealing with this week? What are we needing some help with, advice on? I've been seeing a lot of activity in the group chat this week, which is awesome. What questions do you have?
Uh,
Sal.
I finally got in the group chat. I was having issues with the host of it. I don't remember what it's called, but somebody gave me a piece of advice about um, when you are steering the conversation toward getting signatures. That's a big issue for me that I've been trying to overcome. Somebody gave the advice of just making a statement. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask. If you're all set, sign here and stay quiet. That worked. Like it was so uncomfortable, but it worked. I got two signed yesterday, um, and a third one I'm hoping to get done today. The issue was when I said that to them, they did have other questions and things they wanted to adjust. Some stuff was added. Some stuff they just wanted a little more info on the style of windows that we were planning to use. Um, versus the question they had was the specification differences between double pane and triple pane. So I was diving into that a little bit last night and this morning, hoping to get some info over to them and ideally close that deal.
Sweet. So sounds like another win. Honestly,
Yeah,
hey, that's
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
yeah. So, but I mean, it worked. Who knows if it's going to work every time, but pretty good success rate on those two, I guess.
Are you
Yes.
using a cost plus model or?
So we haven't been, we have been for rough estimates for ourselves. But as far as what we send over to the client, I'm still stuck spending hours and hours typing things out and doing research on materials. I'm going as far as gathering warranties for the main materials we're using, as far as like siding or windows or whatever it may be, just to have in that presentation packet to bring to them, just to show them that this is what we're doing for you. We are very prepared for this. Um, Things like that. I worry that I'm doing too much for just a quote, but so far it's been working great. I just worry about down the road when it starts to feel like a waste of time going
I'm
that
just
deep into
curious
things.
how you're factoring in your profit and all that.
So, so on a lot of it, um, I guess we're doing similar to Cost Plus. As I'm going through and a lot of material prices, I mean, we have saved for what we're charging for the material plus install, but we've had to adjust those. A lot of it is new research involving the cost of materials across the board, adding in our labor hours for install, our overhead fees, our overhead costs are kind of hard for us to calculate right now. So we're just adding a rough percentage there, then tacking the 20% on. So in a way, we're trying to implement cost plus, but with more steps, making it more complicated for ourselves, I believe.
Anthony, I saw your hand up. I don't know if you have a question or if you have advice here on the topic.
Hey, I just wanted to say that for the last year or so I've been in exactly that kind of situation where I felt like I was overworking my estimates. I have moved to cost plus a lot. I didn't jump it out into the wins because it's not actually under contract yet, but just this week I'm touching $220,000 of net profit, over $1 million of revenue and estimates from new builds and whole home remodels. A lot of really big projects kind of all starting to come together, and so I am bidding them all at cost plus. Originally, my bids were, man, to the nines. I'd put 10 hours into an estimate, and I wasn't getting them all. It sucked. It was probably the closest thing to wanting to shut the company down was, putting 100 hours a week into bids and getting a few of them.
Here,
So,
Yeah.
so now you had asked, like, you're pulling your warranty information for all of the products and all of these things. Man, I just simplified everything. And I just outlined to my clients, what is warranted and, how long, yada, 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 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, lifetime. That's pretty much going to be one of those for almost every product. And I just have that knowledge if they ask. At the end of the day, though, my estimates now are saying by the time that we are done, you are going to have an expense report. You're going to have all of the information you need to register any kind of product warranty. So I just let them know, and it takes only a few seconds. Hey, we are going to gather all of this material information, all of these kinds of things. I'm just not going to do it for free, not right now. In so many words, of course. So, man, I would encourage you, try and figure out. You could probably find 75 to 85% of the time that you're putting into estimates, and you could still give your client that value. Just do it after you get a contract.
I
Yeah,
like it.
Good.
totally agree. And it's totally fair if somebody wants you to do that before, like if they're specifically requesting it. And it's totally fair to say, absolutely, I can definitely take the time to get all of that details and information. In order to do that, we are going to charge a $250 estimate fee. That's going to cover my time of going that, just gives you a little bit of skin in the game so that we know that you are more than likely going to move forward. We can roll that fee into your deposit if you do decide to work with us. And that's kind of a general rule, guys, where if you're in a position where you've got more work than you know what to do with, and like you're wanting to kind of sort a little bit quicker in sales, you can charge an estimate fee. And that's not something that you have to do all the time. It can kind of be in whatever season that you're in. And you just let people know, hey, that fee gets waived or rolled into your deposit if you decide to move forward. And so, Sal, I know you guys are still pretty new trying to kind of land it all. So that might not be like a now thing, but it's definitely something that you can do in the future.
I'd encourage sooner rather than later, man. If you're cooking with Redmond growth, it's not
Yeah,
going to take long before you have more than you can handle.
yeah, I'm already pretty impressed, honestly.
Heck yeah.
Love to hear it, guys. Love to hear it. I see two hands up. I'm not sure who
I think,
popped up first.
I think Patrick, you popped in there. Go ahead and give us what
All
you got,
right,
sir.
so all right, so what I've noticed and my uptick, I'm getting that Google Ads thing is working for me. So this team is working very well. The thing is I can't catch up because you guys keep teaching me so much crap, and Travis already knows that. Okay, Pat's an idiot when it comes to computers, so I've changed a little bit of the system. I got a buddy of mine that's got a finance degree. Now he's a smart cookie, but he's young, he's arrogant like me. So we had to kind of teach him a couple things. But the nice thing about him is he taught me profit margins. So I'll go through and I'll break down and estimate materials, and I know what it's going to cost me in labor. I know a lot of guys, if you've actually been in the trades, like I am a tradesman, I know what it takes to do something. I know what it takes for time. I pretty much I walk in a job and go time and materials, and this is what's going to cost me. And I'm usually within 5% on a guess. So I think that's pretty awesome that I can do that. But what I did is I took all my information and then I gave myself a 38% profit margin just to see how it would work out. At 40, I'm doing well. At 40% profit margin, I'm doing well. My business easily can run at 30% profit margin, and I seem to be okay. And it was better than what I was even before I started with Redmond Group. So now I'm trying to learn these things. Now, if I could just kind of like fast track it so I could learn some of the other programs, but that's what helped me there. So what David taught me was you take your cost. Let's say your cost of labor and materials is $2,000. Divide it by 0.6, and that'll give you your 40% profit margin, but it's all wrapped into a total. Okay.
Yep.
And there's your number that we bill out. That's how I learned how to do this. And to be honest, in the last 3 weeks, it's worked. I ran my numbers for my roofs because we do roofing, siding, we do all kinds of stuff. And I know a lot of people think, well, dang, Pat, you take on a lot, but I'm also a master electrician. I have a lot of skills and skill sets. So I needed to find a way to break this down across the board on all the trades and all the skills. This system for me worked until I step into being able to get a program like Builder's Trend or something like that. I'm looking
And
into
even
that. Go ahead.
yeah, and even still, when you get the program, the right methodology you talked about there is really the key, which is dividing what you want, or sorry, dividing your cost of goods sold by what percentage you want that to be gives you the margin you want to get rather than multiplying by the margin you think you're
So,
getting. That's more of a markup setup. So
And
okay.
I think it's worth saying as well that you want to, like, based on this group call, I don't want anybody being like, oh, well, if I charge, he said that if he charges 38, he's doing great. So I'm going to charge 38, which means I'm going
I'm
to do
tiny.
great. Right. It's
Right.
not that
Yep.
what your percentage is going to be different based on who you are, what your cost of goods sold percentage is, what your overhead is. And so talk to your coach. If you give us a 12-month running profit and loss statement, we're going to be able to figure out where your percentages currently are, and we can let you know what you need to be marking up on your cost of goods sold in order to be pulling a profit.
Well,
And
Travis,
so
I got some
keep that in
information for
mind.
you tomorrow.
Yes, yes. Now, again, our percentages are only going to be as accurate as your profit and loss statement is. And so if you don't have an accurate P&L, if you don't have a bookkeeper, let's use that as encouragement
I have a
to
bookkeeper.
sort those things. Love it. Love it. But I just wanted to kind of let people know, let us help you figure out what you need to be adding to your goods sold. Jordan, I want to get to you.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, Pat.
Sorry.
Thank you. Great advice.
Yeah, my comment was actually on the work that he's doing. Like, yeah, you actually sound like you're doing most of the work I was doing in the beginning, which you should be doing. You should be factoring in all your material. I call it material takeoff. So you know exactly what material, and I'm guessing you use suppliers to get with to get those material costs back. So you're really doing pretty much all the work already. Travis ended up just giving me a quick, simple spreadsheet tool to help automatically calculate those percentages to Anthony. I think that was Anthony was talking about, where it actually calculates our overhead and profit in automatically for us. So all I really do is just take that work that I'm doing and input it into the estimate tool. And then it just automatically calculates that for me, because now that I've done it, I will never walk into a job not knowing what I'm going to make first. And so that's kind of what the cost plus does. It gives me peace of mind knowing that no matter what I do, I'm going to make profit on that job. And if a customer has an issue and they've got questions during the presentation stage, if I have to make some adjustments, I still could know exactly how much I'm going to make without worrying that, oh, I'm taking all my profit away. And I've had to do that. But I will also say, like, my percentage of closing has gone up significantly since starting this model as well. I've closed almost 100% of all the larger projects that I've quoted this year, now that I'm really seated in this model, and there's no going back for me. So like, I just wanted to say, like, I wanted to kind of maybe ease your mind if you thought that maybe there's a bunch more work involved in the cost plus. There's really not. It's just kind of almost simplifying the work that you're doing, organizing it a bit better, and it's automatically calculating your profit that you need in there. So
Yeah, love it.
My
Go ahead,
sorry,
Tom.
sorry, my main thing with the cost plus, and it might have been something that's in here in some of these materials and tools, is how do I work that into a presentable pitch, I guess, into something that's presentable to the client.
we will take, I kind of do it two ways. Sometimes I will, it depends on the customer, because I've noticed that, like, tech guys, IT guys, computer guys, they love spreadsheets. And
Price.
I've actually figured out those type of customers, I will actually present straight off my spreadsheet, and it's worked really well for those guys. I don't do that with every customer. For all others, I transfer it over into like a proposal model, and I basically just transfer that information over. It just looks a little bit cleaner and more organized. It's the same info. And on that one, I do two ways, because I can tell some customers don't care as much about the details as what that total number is. But if I decide to just provide a total number and they ask, I still have the complete breakdown and can easily transition because it's already in my estimate tool. So that's kind of what I've done, is just kind of do a better job of learning my customers and how they want to see information, and use one of those 2 or 3 different ways of doing that.
Yeah. I threw our proposal template in there too, guys. This is kind of a plug and play, but you can make a copy of it and use that as well. In order to kind of present. The estimating tool is not really one that, like, I would say present with, unless you're in a situation with Jordan where like a spreadsheet is going to be best best to present. But that you can use the estimate tool to come up with your numbers and then plug that into that proposal template. One thing I wanted to touch on, and Bryce, I don't know if you can grab it, the estimate versus actual spreadsheet. Is if you use the estimate tool and you're like, Nicole, I know my cost of goods sold is 20% of my entire revenue. And so I'm marking up my jobs 35% so I get a 15% profit. But I'm still not seeing that money. Like, I'm breaking even. It's not working. I know my percentage right. I know that 35% on my cost of goods sold should give me 15% profit, but it's not. That's when this estimate comparison sheet comes into play, where we really want to make sure that your cost of goods sold, what you're estimating your cost of goods sold to be in the beginning, is accurate. Because if that number isn't accurate, it doesn't matter how much you're marking up. You're not going to see that profit. And so these are things like callbacks, change orders, not adjusting material prices for inflation. All of those things can really impact your cost of goods sold. And if that isn't accurate, then cost plus isn't going to work for you. That's going to eat straight into that profit. And this estimate comparison sheet is a great way to keep track of what did I originally estimate versus what did this job actually cost me. And you can see patterns and trends and really be able to solve it. Jason, I know you with property rehab, this estimate comparison sheet really changed the game for you guys when it came to your figuring out your pricing, where things were getting mixed up.
Yeah, it was huge. It's definitely helping us a lot, just getting everything else in place, but definitely worth using.
Yeah. Anthony, I saw your hand up. What's going on?
Yeah, Robert's not here to give his famous line on cost plus, but I thought I'd share it. It's you pay what I pay, and I think that's one of the coolest freaking phrases. So I've been using that on every single pitch since implementing cost plus. You pay what I pay. Here's our admin charge. Here's our construction management fee. This is why we charge those things. But at the end of the day, if our electrician gives us a discount, you get the discount, not me.
Mm-hmm. That's huge. It's huge. What other questions do we have today? Doesn't have to be cost plus related, but definitely can be.
I got a question for Jordan Barry. Do you do subcontracting?
Yeah, we do some, not a lot. I prefer to work direct to customer. And
Okay.
so, like, when we start our Dream 100 model, I'm going to be reaching out to contractors who don't want to deal with the electrical. And I've noticed a lot of like detached buildings and things of that nature seem to attract a lot of contractors that just want to throw the structure up and then let the customer self-contract the rest of the stuff that they want in there. And that's one of the things that has been really good for us, is we've got a couple that do detached buildings, and they've provided a lot of great customers and projects for us. And it's like free advertising too, because they're spending the advertising to get the buildings, but then they just are referring us you know, when the customer's like, well, we want electrical and stuff in there, and well, we don't really do that, but we got this great electrician. And so we're probably going to try to get more of those.
Thanks.
What other questions got going on? Thoughts? Feedback?
Definitely appreciate you guys making the time to be here as well. I know it can get real busy during the summertime.
Yeah.
Everybody
And
picks up.
coming off of a holiday week too, you know,
Oh,
where
that's true.
you're down a day. I know. I see Philip nodding his head. I know a lot of clients that I've talked to this week, they're like, like this week's been chaos. Pat, I see your hand up.
You're muted, sir.
All right, quick question. I know that there's another Sparky in this group somewhere. So we went to a service call and we walked in there and we looked at the situation. It was an easy hour fix until we got a hold of the customer's product that they want us to install, and then it took us 2.5 hours. And I'm not going to sit there and tell a customer, yeah, it takes an hour, and then it takes us 2.5 because it's some piece of crap part that we don't normally use. But when you try to explain that to a 78-year-old woman, she doesn't want to hear that the bill doubled. So I ate it. How do I go in the future? Because in service calls, I mean, I could give you a rough estimate, but you never quite know what we're going to really run into. I mean, there's too many variables. How do I adjust that when I go on a service call for a customer?
Can I answer that?
You
Please
bet.
do.
The second something changes, you go and you talk to the customer. You have to, because you
Okay.
can't, if you run so many service calls. So I worked for the largest service company in Kansas City. I'm now in Nashville and run my own company, but they gave us some of the best sales training I've ever had on running service. And that's what we did. If it was a minor change, I often wouldn't. I would just take care of it because I'm like, it's not worth going back. But if it's a moderate to significant change, the second you notice something different, you stop what you're doing, you go and talk to the customer, and you have a real conversation with them about, hey, I know this is what we spoke about, and acknowledge that. But you have to do a good job of explaining to them what changed, what you ran into, and then you need to make sure you rework that and get that approved before you continue. And most customers, there's like this fear that most people have that, oh, if it changes, the customer's going to be upset. They're only going to be upset if you do.
I think we lost you, Jordan.
Yeah, sorry, my phone's connected to my headset too. I got to turn that off, so when I get a call in, it like takes it away. So they only get upset if you do one of a couple things. If you just do it and surprise them with the bill afterwards, or if you don't communicate well when you go to them to tell them about the change. But if you're good about communicating, you're honest, and you've already established that trust with them before you got there, then most of the time it works out just fine. And that fear is kind of irrational.
I was not there that day. It
Yeah.
happened yesterday with my electrician, Austin, and our apprentice, Juan. Juan
Hey,
handles
Juan.
everything. So, Juan's a great worker, and he's got that bilingual thing down. So it really helps. But
Just
that was
make
the
sure,
issue.
Pat, yeah, just make sure that all of them know that, hey, anytime that there's a change order, we stop work, we go to the customer, we communicate the change order, the new price and timeline, and I would recommend getting it signed and dated by both parties. If you use something like House Call Pro, or I think even Builder Trend or anything like that, usually they have change orders in there that you can do. Or we have a change order template that you can have printed off carbon copies that you guys just keep on clipboards and are able to use. But having it
If I could get
documented, written down, signed is ideal.
If I could
Jordan
get a
Russell, I
copy
don't
of
know
that
if
change order thing, that would be cool.
Bryce
Yeah,
is
I'm putting it in the
grabbing it.
chat right now.
Jordan
Bryce,
Russell,
you're
I know
awesome.
you're an electrician. You deal with this stuff. Do you have
For,
advice?
for sure. And is this like a time and material job or a bid job, or what's the
This
scenario?
This was a quick service, time and material, swapping out a light above a sink. But back in the
Yeah.
old days, they had these 8-inch by 8-inch square lights. Now we go to discs. This lady wanted a specific light, and this is one of those ultimately piece of crap Chinese things. Everything kept falling apart on it.
Yikes.
My electrician was freaking pissed. And I'm like, Austin, I understand. So I had to talk him off a ledge because he was really frustrated with it. And then when we go give the bill to the customer, of course, I was not there. So I wrote it up, and the customer's like, hey, why is it, $200 more? And I'm like, okay, I understand. And I took the step back. I ate it because ultimately it was my mistake. And because of this team now, I know how to better address it. But I had Juan jump in the truck with me when I asked this question, because it was ultimately on his team that we needed to address. So
Yeah.
man, thanks
So
guys.
except for a couple contractors that we work for that just want us to go out and it's totally understood that it's going to be time and material, we've tried to get away from all that, and we just give a solid quote on a job. And basically we aim high on everything, because like it sounds like for one light swap, it's not gonna make and break your company, right? So it's like for us, it's our reputation on, like, because we always say that, and like our selling point is that fair and affordable pricing. What that means is that we stick to our quote. We don't change our price at the end. I would rather be able to like live by that selling point for us than I would rather be able to live by that selling point for us than like make a big stink over like $100 or something like that, because I know on 98% of the other ones we're going to make up for it, right? And so like there's service in the electrical world. I don't know, I'm sure service in all the worlds is hard, but service in the electrical world is a frustrating business because you always walk in expecting one thing and it's something totally different. That's why we charge what we charge. I mean, that literally is it. And if you're trying to like just barely make a quote that's barely going to cover your bases every time, at least 50% of the jobs are going to have an unexpected thing that you got to pop up on, So I tell my guys, we always shoot high. I mean, there should be plenty of markup to cover something like that. And if it's something that's really out of the ordinary, like it's a square light and you're trying to put in a round wafer or round can, I mean, sometimes you just have to adjust that at that point in time, just eat that one.
Right.
And let the customer know, hey, this is something that was super unexpected. We're not going to charge more, but if you could write us a good review or something like that, like that's how we would handle that.
Okay, thanks Jordan, appreciate it.
Yeah.
How do you guys handle expectation setting at the front end? Because it seems like, and again, I don't know your business specifically, but like, let's say you're replacing 4 lights in a house, you could set that expectation on the bid that it's going to be an hour per light or whatever. Then you have something to go back to that customer with, right? So I deal with more general stuff. So I might say I'm going to replace a water heater, and I'm going to say what water, like it's going to be a 40-gallon gas water heater. That's what this bid is based on. And then you can maybe share that. And then when things change, you can always point back to that, right? Kind of like Nicole was saying, like there has to be, a conversation there about what's changed, but that expectation should be set on the front end so that change will make sense. In other words, there was an original and now there's a new. So how do you guys address that piece?
Yeah. If you're a general contractor, well, I mean, I guess this could be applicable to even our service guys, but we have a working agreement that really goes over all expectations. So it goes over price escalation clauses, what happens if payment is late and we don't stick to the draw schedule, how change orders are handled, the different types of change orders. And so I would really make sure on any larger project, and for service guys too, if it's a big project, you're going to be there for a couple of days, make sure to go over a working agreement. And this is separate from your proposal or contract. Your proposal or contract is like, hey, this is the scope of work and the price, and we agree to that. The working agreement is more so these are the terms and conditions of working with us. And if you're a service guy who uses House Call Pro or Service Titan, you can definitely have a working agreement or your terms and conditions built in there, where when they sign off to the estimate, they sign off to that as well. And we just want to make sure we're going over those things, like kind of we were talking about earlier with Pat, is customers aren't going to be overly upset as long as we are setting expectations at the beginning and we're communicating. And this is a great tool to be able to do that. Grant, I see your hand up.
Sorry about that. His phone was in my pocket while I was
You're
listening.
good.
I'm up on a ladder.
You're good. Any other? Sal, yes. You're muted.
This kind of goes back to change orders and subcontracting. We do implement, so part of the reason we do a lot of detail in our estimates is for that particular reason, for when there's change orders that come up. We have everything for the most part broken down by the foot or by the unit, whatever the unit might be. And that way, if there's any variance, it's easy to point out. Now, lately, I've been out doing a lot more calls on giving quotes and things along those lines. We've been one guy short in the field. Typically, there's 3 of us that are out working in the field regularly. I've been off for the past week and a half, just taking care of new clients onboarding. And I worry about when we get too busy. I mean, we need to start subcontracting some stuff out. We absolutely need to keep timelines appropriate. And then we're worried about the more complex jobs. If we're subcontracting them out to people, and we know that we are very good problem solvers in the field, we don't know about anybody else. I'm sure everybody's capable. We don't know their capabilities, and that's what we're worried about as far as if there are any changes and change orders that we need to be responsible for. So I guess how is everybody handling that aspect when it comes to subcontracting a job that has a million variances?
I think what you're also kind of asking, Sal, and correct me if I'm wrong, is like, how do you trust subs to maintain quality and like make sure that they have the quality that you do, that they're going to be as efficient? Is that kind of your fear? Is like, hey, if I start subbing
Yeah,
this out, I can't make sure that quality and efficiency is what we are up to our standards.
definitely. And the other thing is, when we run into change orders, we make sure we stop, we go talk to the client, explain everything, and get that signature before we continue, so there's no confusion on the back end when it comes time for final payment. And I'd hate to tell a siding team or somebody doing the roof to stop and let me come there, talk to the client. I'd hate to do that. I also don't want them to start marketing their own company to this client rather than us.
So two thoughts. We deal with this all the time, right? We have to subcontract a lot.
Okay.
Is your subcontractor a lead type? In other words, are they a leader on the site, or are they just laborers?
So the only subcontractors we've used at all is for roofing, and
Gotcha.
the guy we use, he's a leader for sure. But
Okay.
when he runs into changes, I talk to him, tell him, yeah, that's a mismeasurement on my end. Go ahead, I'll get you the extra shingles or ridge, whatever it may be. Get
Right.
it on site, and I'll deal with the client. And for that, it's not as big of an issue as if I have somebody coming in doing, I don't know, say they're running flooring, and all of a sudden now the client wants them to rip up a bunch of flooring, and we got issues.
Right. So the reason I ask is because obviously there's a different skill set there. You have to add overhead if you have just laborers. If you have a lead there, then you don't have to worry necessarily about sort of the step-by-step decisions that have to be made. That should be what that lead can handle. I would say, and again, just an opinion, but just like you would have an office assistant that has a script for each call, you probably need to train your subs to have a script about those conversations. And I make it very clear with mine because, again, I do a lot of subcontracting work and I do a lot of repeat business with investors. I cannot have my subs stealing my investors and vice versa, right? I have a very clear conversation with both sides of that. And if somebody does, then we're done working together ever, is kind of the line I draw. Now, again, that's just my market, and that may seem a little rough, but it is what it is. I have to draw that line. So I would say if you can have a script where, a customer comes to them with a question that's outside of, quote unquote, their expertise, they're there to roof, they're not necessarily there to talk about eaves or whatever, then I think maybe you can sort of point them back to you, and then you can have those conversations that you need to have, right? Whether it's a change request or additional business or referrals or whatever it is, they really are there to do one job, and you can enable them to sort of point everything back to you. Would that make sense?
Yeah, that's very helpful, actually.
Sorry to be so helpful. No, kidding. You could save the actually, Salvador. Goodness gracious. No.
Nice. Any other thoughts people want to add in on that, or any other questions y'all have here this morning?
I would also just say having working agreements for subcontractors as well. When you're subbing work out, they're still representing your company and making sure that you're communicating expectations to them, and there's documentation of agreement of how certain things are to be handled going into the job is always well worth the time that it takes to set that up, which we have a template for that as well. Bryce shared. And so I think that's the main thing. It's just, as with most things in business, it comes down to communicating well. And by default, I think people generally, even when we think we are communicating well, maybe tend to under communicate. If you feel like you're almost over communicating, that's usually when the point's actually getting across, whether it's a subcontractor, customer, whatever. And so when you write it out and you spell it out for them, it eliminates any, well, I didn't know or didn't realize or didn't think. It's like, well, hey, it's right here. We went over it. You signed it, plain as day. And so it just eliminates, those cracks to pop up where something like that is a lot less likely to happen.
Yeah. I think sometimes people think that subs are different than employees, and like you have to, they kind of can do whatever they want, and that's not true. They're on your job. They can sign a write-up policy just like an employee can. So this subcontractor working agreement has that in there. But yeah, like Travis said, setting expectations, getting things signed, over communicating.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
I feel like, not really feel like, I really believe that most people, when I've found this to be true for myself and many others, there's this fear that people are going to push back when you start doing these things. And the reality is hardly anybody's going to push back. And the ones that do push back are probably the ones that you just don't want to be doing this with: customers, subcontractors, employees, whoever. And I've just found any of those fears that I have about implementing new things are usually, most of the time, they're just a fear of an unknown. And so I don't know if that helps anybody who's thinking about doing some of these things, but I just felt like it might be helpful to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Any other questions here today? Feedback's been great, guys.
Sorry, last comment. I do think I think it was God, who was talking about it earlier? Just have to look at the list. But,
Sal?
No, one of
That's
the
right.
Jordans. I think Jordan Russell. But anyway, with the little it was anyway, whoever was talking about the little old lady that they had to deal with, right, quote unquote, deal with, and they were worried that she was going to say no because the price had increased. There's a paradigm there, and Bryce and I have talked about this before, and I think I've heard it in other calls, but we have to let the customer say no. We just have to boldly say what we need to say. Let them say no. They'll say no. And if we do, then we have a conversation about it. But if we say no before they say no, there's just so many opportunities there. And that's true of upsell and so many scenarios. So I know there's a fear there, and believe me, I've felt it myself. But the more I just boldly say what I need to say, the more it becomes clear that I can't speak for the customer. Let them. And then when they do, in that is discovery about why they're not comfortable with it. Price is a problem, timeline is a problem, whatever it might be. But you use that feedback to then discover what their pain is, and then leverage that pain to then win the deal, right? So there's really no negative in that conversation. You just have to boldly understand that you're trying to build a relationship of trust, and if you can't ask those difficult questions, then you're going to have a difficult time really getting into that level of trust that you need to have with them. They're going to be spending a bunch of money with you potentially, right? And hopefully be a repeat customer. So be brave, do that, let them say no, and no just means you can pivot to something else. It's not the end of the world.
Absolutely. Great advice.
Yeah, I put it in the chat, but the way I verbalize that is like never pre-qualify and never pre-disqualify a sale.
Mm-hmm.
You just trust your process. Because if you do that, that bleeds through into how you talk to customers, and they can see it even if you don't realize you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
They can smell it from a mile away.
Yep.
Anthony, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, hey, I actually had a question. I don't know if this is like a branch off of a topic we're not done with yet, but you mentioned charging for estimates. I just wanted to get a rough idea of what's normal, what's fair. I actually am at the point where I think I'm going to start doing that. I just don't know how.
Yeah. Jordan?
I had a separate issue or a separate thing I was
Oh.
going to comment on, but I'll comment on this. So in Omaha, Nebraska, we tried to do that. What was it like, Nicole, about like November or December? And we were losing a lot of leads. Like as soon as the phone would ring, hey, we'd go through our little spiel, and just letting you know, we do charge a $99 fee for an estimate. It's waived if you use us for the job. And we were getting a lot of people hanging up, and work wasn't like super slow, but it wasn't fast enough. So we decided just not to use it, and we haven't gone back to it since. But we tried a $99 fee, and we were getting a lot of people hanging up before we could even book the appointment. So we decided to do away with it.
That's awesome. That's actually exactly what I'm looking for. I'm doing way too many estimates right now.
Yeah.
I need
And
I need a salesperson and a secretary, or I need to start charging, and I don't
Yeah.
have the salesperson and secretary, so I need
And that's
to
a
filter out.
That's a good caveat, Anthony. And also, I think you guys are in pretty different industries where Jordan's an electrician. He's doing a lot of residential work, where I think you're doing more remodeling. And so, different seasons demand different things. If you have more leads than you know what to do with, and you're, booked out, hell yeah, charge a trip fee, charge an estimate fee. We have a script on how to present that on the phone so that it doesn't seem like such a pain point to a customer. Your area might be different too. I think that's something to take into consideration as well. I'm not saying that this is a rule for everybody everywhere, but definitely the way that we present that trip fee or estimate fee is going to kind of be the make or break on how well it works. But if you're in a season where you've got a big team, you're trying to keep everybody booked, don't charge it. Especially on service, once you've got your foot in the you're at that customer's house, your closing ratio should be over 80-90%. And so your need to charge that estimate fee might be lower. Where if you're a remodeler and you've got a lot of leads and your estimates take a butt ton of time, let's start sorting. Let's charge that estimate fee, and so that we're not wasting our time. Those people have a little bit of skin in the game. Philip, I see your hand.
Yeah, we struggle with this a lot, especially with the ebbs and flows of the busyness of things. But we try to frame it as a pre-construction fee, and if we're not doing any design, and that really kind of, and if you frame it in that way, and frame it in the way that like, hey, you're going to get bids from other guys, but maybe their estimate isn't accurate, and then you get halfway through the project and their project, or their budget is 20% over what they had budgeted. And trying to frame it in a way like, we charge this now to safeguard your budget in the future. And even on top of that, and it weeds, the big thing too is it weeds out a lot of the people that aren't serious or going to shop around a lot. And then we also kind of, whenever we're doing design, if we're like, even if we're doing like a simple floor plan or a simple, kitchen remodel, if we're doing the design, we'll bake in our estimating hours into that design contract, just so that we're covered when we have to put pricing together.
Yeah, can I add as well? It's from the service perspective. I don't charge estimates for our larger projects just because we do electrical. Most of the time there's already design there. And so we don't really have to worry about that. But with our service stuff, we found presentation at, I don't know how to say his name, Mr. Perry Neppy. Is that? Anyway, presentation's key, because like when the CSR was saying, hey, it's $65 to come out, we were almost like saying that first and then feeling like we have to rush to build the value after that. So we actually decided to put it at the end of that portion so that we're building the value first, so that when we get to the 65, they've actually heard what we said. Because if we say the 65 first, the ears shut off. They don't hear another word you said. It's like, what? $65 just to have you give me a number? Like that's what people do. But when we're like, no, we're going to send a fully trained technician out to your house. They're going to evaluate your system, make sure we can give you an accurate quote, spend the time with you, helping you understand it, all these things, and then go, all that is just $65. It's like, oh, cool.
They
That's
see
not
the value.
bad. They see the value in it. And
Value before price.
Yeah, they've actually heard it. And so don't know why it took us 3 or 4 months to figure that out, but we did.
Well,
and so it went much better.
I typed out a script, or stole this script from and if whoever's answering the phone, if they're not using a script for your company, red flag. We need a script. I don't care how good they sound on the phone, how good they are. Everybody needs a script. I don't know if you guys know this, but half the time when a coach is presenting something to you, we have an outline or a script. You probably don't even know that. And so like everybody needs it. There's no way that they can remember everything. It's just going to make things a lot more streamlined, efficient. And so I just took this from our script for service companies. And I put the blurb about explaining the trip fee in the chat here. But you're right, Jordan. It's all about how you communicate the value of what that trip fee is. That's the make or break. I see a hand up. Philip, I think you were first. What's going on, sir? I don't know if you're moving or muted or.
He's in a daydream.
Yeah, this car is really cool. It's got one of those like sunroofs that go all the way back.
I think he just forgot to let his hand down.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Fletcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happened. All right. Good morning, everybody. This was a question. We have executive team meetings every third Friday of every month. And so, Travis, I apologize. I said it was the 16th. It was the week before that. But anyway, in that meeting, we were actually talking about starting to charge for estimates because we're getting a lot of requests. So we were doing the same thing. And so I started pushing my team to really think about why we would charge, because we've been doing free estimates ever since the company's been open, which has allowed us to have such a draw of leads, because it doesn't cost them anything to have us tell them what they need to have done for their home and have our expert opinion. It's free for them to have our expert opinion. That what gets us in the door. So we give them the value right away. But what we came up with this last meeting this month was we do provide expiration dates on our estimates.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone wants to do the service after
Amen.
the expiration date, we then charge them that service fee. and we do charge 135. So they decide, hey, I want to do this, but it's expired. They say, okay, well, we can double check to make sure the pricing is still the same for your materials and things like that. But now it's going to cost you $135 because now we have to do more work from the free service we already provided. And what we haven't actually had to do it yet, but what we're anticipating we're going to find is that customers are going to see that they had value. They waited too long and dragged their feet and lost that value, but they can regain that value for a minimum price of $135. And so we put it on the back end after providing the value. They can see the quote, they can see our customer service. We can have the follow-up calls. We do follow up with them to remind them, hey, you do have this expiration date on your estimate. We need you to follow up. And the way we typically do it is for us to start, we take a deposit and then we schedule them out within 2 weeks after that deposit. So if they don't get back to us within that time frame, then we can then charge them a service fee, which is to reopen their quote back up. So that's an idea. I don't know if it works yet. I haven't done it yet. But that's
well, keep us
only
posted.
2 weeks ago.
Keep us posted. What I will say
will.
is that estimates should have expiration. Like if I give you this estimate and you come back to me 2 months later, that does not mean that the price is going to be the same, and it's up to you how long you want to guarantee that price. If you want to do it for 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, that's kind of dependent on where you're at right now, company wise, booked out wise. But especially with inflation, how volatile material costs have been, we want to make sure that you guys aren't stuck with a price that is inaccurate because somebody waited so long. It's also a little healthy pressure is not a bad thing either, to apply that onto people and say, hey, I can only guarantee this price for the next 14 days. One thing Tim Redmond says constantly is casualness creates casualties. If we're casual about, oh yeah, give me a call when you're ready, or oh yeah, well, here's your estimate, let me know, that's pretty casual. We want to make sure we book follow-up appointments, want to make sure that we have, this price is only good for a certain time.
I was doing that for years and losing so many jobs because of it. Just trying to be friendly and give me a call when you feel like it. No,
Yeah.
that's unfortunately that's not how business works or businesses grow.
Yep.
Preach it.
Yep. Love it, guys. Oh, well, this has been awesome. I know I see Mr. Perry over here is dropping out for another call. I know that a lot of you have meetings and run by a strict schedule. So we'll wrap up this call here today. If you need more elaboration, questions, book laser calls with your coach so we can get you help, ask questions in the group chat. I'm going to pull these links that we gave you guys today, and I'll stick them in the group chat as well so you guys can get them, outside of this meeting because they'll disappear once the call's done. But you guys have a wonderful weekend, great rest of your week, and we will see you next Thursday. Bye.